Good morning, and thank you once again for joining me this Thursday on Voluntary Virtues, a conversation with Kelly Diamond. You can hear every Thursday morning at 6:30 a.m. Pacific Time, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also catch my written word every week on Monday at globalwealthprotection.com. So, first and foremost, yesterday was the official tax deadline for the United States. My condolences to all of you who had to part with your wealth, your hard-earned wealth. I'm sorry for your loss. Today's topic is, I called it security blanket, mainly because it was kind of a sounding board off of last week, putting faith in the system. But in this regard, I'm looking at it more from the status defense and apologies for having a state. And ultimately, it does fall apart fairly quickly. But it's interesting because the minarchist defends having a state as ardently as, your mainstream Democrat or Republican. And it's kind of sad in a way, because it seems like the way they position the state in the discussion is that it's like a security blanket, for a little child. Except this is the security blanket for their inner child, because they feel like, well, by and large, sure, people are peaceful. By and large, people will, be okay. But we should have it for these rare occasions of X, Y, and Z. What's funny is that that's how every piece of legislation is usually argued in, right? Right down to murder. You can believe it. The penal codes for murder. If you think about it, the murdering population of the United States is very small in terms of percentages and per thousand. It's big compared to the rest of the world, but it's certainly not the majority of people. If the majority of people were running around killing each other, we'd be living in a Mad Max situation. You'd be hearing gunfire outside, not my voice. So the majority of people aren't violent criminals in general. Like, no matter where you go. I've been in third world countries. The majority of people are not violent criminals. Even the petty thieves don't want to be. They don't want to be that. That's not who they are. That's who their circumstances have made them, but it's certainly not who they are. All things being equal, they probably wouldn't be petty thieves. If you look at our prison population, a good chunk of them are non-violent offenders. They have no victims to the crimes that they've committed. So even with the laws, we've just created more criminals on the record, but we haven't made people more violent. You know what I'm saying? Like, people are not more violent because there's more laws. People aren't less violent. People continue to do what they've always been doing. And not to discredit or not to dismiss the fact that there are violent people and violent criminals and actors out there. I don't deny that for a second. Okay, that's not the point. The point is that we've structured a whole system around the what ifs and that small percentage. And that's interesting, right? Because if you do that every single time on every single count, next thing you know, you've got a bogged down system where it takes 5 years of law school just to learn how to navigate your way through it. Now, law school doesn't actually teach you the laws. It teaches you some. It teaches you some case law. It teaches you some precedent, and it teaches you how to look at it, how to look at all this stuff. But you still got to go actually learn each of the ordinances. They certainly don't have flashcards for that. You'd never be able to learn it fast enough. So we cling to, there are people, the status clings to the state, not, and even the ones, and the majority of them will even tell you it's a necessary evil, right? But they choose evil nonetheless because they're afraid to let go of it. What would happen if? Well, look at all these laws that were created for this minority. So you have the murdering and rapist penal codes and laws. not to, yeah, I mean, the thing is that you can make it illegal. Okay, and legality has nothing to do with whether you condone the behavior. And I think that's the first and foremost thing we need to get out of the way. So legality has nothing to do with whether you condone the behavior. Is if you make it illegal and you criminalize it, you simply officially declared that it's wrong. But does it really require an official declaration? If the people who are going to murder, right? Whether it's against the law or not. That's why we still got that stuff going on. We still have people killing each other because it doesn't matter that it's illegal. Just like it's illegal to steal. Okay. Has thieving and robbery just disappeared? It just stops now? No, people have just become more clever about it. You know, like any other child that's told you can't do this and they get busted for it, they just try to be more creative about how they go about disobeying their authorities, right? So making it illegal means you're telling the people who were never going to do it in the first place, continue to not do it officially. And those of you who are going to do it, well, we've got some shit in place if and when we catch you. Which does what? I mean, I think, you know, the state has put so much stock in the idea that by making it illegal, it serves as some sort of deterrent. But if it did, then we wouldn't have people doing it. So then I have to ask, okay, so there's that percentage of people that you're never going to stop from being criminals, right? Then there's the percentage of people who just aren't going to do it, whether it's legal or not. Let's say there's that percentage of people. There's that middle ground of people, right? That middle ground of people that says, if it were legal, I'd do it. If it were legal, you'd do it? You'd violently murder somebody? Like, if it were legal? Like, so you're walking around like a total fucking sociopath? But that's okay because you haven't done anything yet, you know? But what good does the law do to address these serious ethical issues that people and conflicts that people are actually suffering? The only thing that stops them from being a violent offender is the law. Is that the kind of social dependency we're trying to create? That we can no longer instill and raise children to grow up with an understanding and basic regard for natural rights. We'll just tell them what they can and can't do, and they'll just naturally fall into those categories. I mean, I guess is like the law just a fallback plan, or is that the plan? Like, parents, don't worry about it. We got this. You know, you just go ahead and work and dump your kid in daycare. The law will ultimately guide your kid and tell them what they can and cannot do. We got this. And if they get busted, we'll throw them in the clinker just like everybody else. I mean, they're giving felony records to freaking children, for God's sakes, you know, for breaking the rules on a school campus. I mean, that's what's happening. Schools are calling police officers now to be their disciplinarians and enforce school rules. When the kids don't, and they resist these police officers, they're getting felony records. I mean, we're criminalizing so much, but then the statist argues, we need this law and order, we need this for civility and order. And I have to ask, what civility? Well, it's obviously there's too much right now. It's too bloated, it's too big. Okay. But people don't get fat overnight, right? 1 calorie at a time, one bad choice consumed at a time is what makes you fat. Just like getting sick, building up, getting cancer often takes years of bad behavior. And you don't even notice that you have cancer until one day, you're pissing blood. I mean, this stuff takes time, right? So we take these series of terrible bites of bad choices as a society over time. We get to be morbidly obese and disgusting. And minarchists are saying, well, we got to get back in shape. You know, our government needs to get back in shape and needs to become trim. And I say, okay, but every single one, which one of these are you willing to get rid of? Oh, I'd cut the department of this, the department of that, all the shit that wasn't around 100 years ago. Just cut it, get rid of it. Okay. But those were all solutions to the same generic problem you're talking about, and that is that small minority of people who might just do this. These are all preemptive actions, right? How far can we go? I mean, if I push the minarchists far enough, how far can we go to trim down the government? Can I get rid of the military? Well, no. Oh, we can't? You are or you aren't for the Constitution, because we're not supposed to have a standing army. Can I get rid of the standing army and stick with the Constitution? Well, that's not yeah, okay. So you still need, I mean, because, you know, the military is what? Some ridiculous amount of money, like a third of every dollar in tax revenue is spent on the military. 13 cents of every dollar is being spent to service our debt. So what significant thing are you cutting? You're not going to cut the, well, you know, that's why even the libertarian will say, oh no, bring the troops home, you know, we don't need to be meddling in everybody else's shit. Okay, we don't have to meddle in other people's shit, bring everybody home. So what services does the government provide? Courts, they provide courts. They're not objective courts that actually generate justice. So we need to have those courts, government-funded courts. That's what you're saying? I mean, when you try to distill the argument down to what we need, like really what we need, well, we need a common defense. Why? Well, what, you think just a bunch of people, you know, private citizens with rifles are going to be enough? Enough for what? An invasion. An invasion from who? I mean, I'm still trying to figure out like where the state fits into all of this, because I mean, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, but it seems like there's still that, you know, like my mom used to do this when I first tried to move out. I kid you not, that woman had more scenarios on what could possibly go wrong than you could imagine. I mean, it was like, what if a gorilla walked in? Then what? Then I'm fucked. I imagine I'd give him a snack, kind of buy some time while I got out. I don't know. I mean, I never had enough money saved. I never had enough money saved. I never had enough, you know, there was never enough precaution I took. And there was never, you know, it was just, whatever it wasn't sufficient to protect me from whatever, moving out. Or whatever possibilities of what could possibly happen if I moved out. And I'm thinking, well, I mean, I'm the same age she was when she came to the United States at the time. She left the entire country of Japan to come here. And the worst thing that happened to her was she was mugged the first day she was here in Inglewood. So I kind of just decided, well, I'm not going to go to Inglewood. I'm going to stay in the burbs. And I'm just going to move, what, half a mile away from my mom and a half a mile away from my dad. And it was still, you know, what if, you know, it's still panic, right? But that's the statist mentality, is that freaked out mom, you know, letting go. I can't let go. If I let go, then a gorilla could walk in, sit on you and crush you, and I'd lose my child. And I mean, the imagination reels. And I can't seem to distill the discussion. I can't seem to get it to a place where it's like, okay, basic needs. What are they? Education and roads. Education and roads? But we don't need state-sponsored education and roads. I literally combed the interwebs. I can find just about anything on the internet, at least for now. And I can tell you that there's nothing that draws any sort of correlation to, if we didn't have a government, we wouldn't have roads. Like there's not even a correlation. Never mind causation, but there's not even a corollary between the two. Yes, currently local cities and all the way up, I guess, depending on where and what geography you're in. But governments at various levels contribute to building roads and infrastructure. I get that. But if they didn't, we would still have something connecting the dots from A to destination B. The roads wouldn't just spontaneously combust and disappear. The people who know how to pave roads would not be swallowed up by the earth or their memories wiped. The companies that run these paving these paving companies would still exist. They would be hired. They just wouldn't be hired by a central government anymore. That's all. We'd still use the damn roads. There'd still be a market for it. Why would the market just stop providing it? I mean, think of all the essentials that the market provides easily without the state. I mean, the state interferes, but the state doesn't facilitate it. The state interferes with it. But there's plenty of services and goods that the market manages to provide direct to the customer, private entity to private entity, and there's no threat of like people going without if they demand it. The only thing that could possibly prevent people from getting what they need in the market is a natural disaster, right? But that's what makes it a disaster. It's not a disaster if everything's still cool. So, but they cling to this thing. We need taxes. We need to have the government. We need the state. We need that because the criminals. Like, so it comes down to the safety thing, right? It comes down because criminals. What do we do about that? And of course, it always takes that extreme case. Like the extreme hypothetical gorilla walks in scenario, because otherwise it doesn't work. Everyday things, commonplace lives, the average 24 hours for any given person on any given day, you can't play off of that. That's not your normal. That's not your normal. We're accounting for what could possibly happen if. And that's how the Affordable Care Act got voted in. A minority of people, not the majority of people, the minority of people, there was a minority of people that didn't have health insurance, some of whom had no insurance by choice, I might add. So we completely turned our economy on its ear and criminalized the fact that people don't have insurance. And then we laud the fact that all these people now have insurance. Well, shit. You put a gun to their head and now they have it. That's not a success story. Well, if it weren't for laws, there'd be children working in factories and living in cages. There would be, polluted water and polluted air and no plants because all the corporations would just clear cut everything. I mean, this idea that the only thing that stands between some dystopic, end time scenario that they've seen played out in cinemas enough times, and what we have now is the state. But I'm just wondering how they came to that conclusion. We need to get back to the Constitution. We need, just the basics. We need the basics. Why? What does the Constitution actually do? I understand what it says. I know what it says. It just doesn't matter that it says it. You know what I'm saying? Like, get back to the Constitution. Why? The Constitution, the Bill of Rights, was originally written for states, not for individuals. Originally. The fact that it later got interpreted to include individuals is a completely different story. But so then, which Constitution do we get back to? Do we get back to the one with just the 10 amendments? Do we just get back to the articles? Which one? And what is it that, such a precarious system, that this precarious system that relies on certain people doing certain things at certain times, and they have to be the right person doing the right things at the right times, or else the shit don't work. Right? We can't have ignorant voters or else this doesn't work. So everybody has to be very well educated, like North Korea educated, or just literate. I mean, but so all of these, so this whole system is based on certain things lining up. They've never lined up for over 235 years. Not a goddamn thing's lined up, which is why we're in the shit that we're in. But we still need this system. Well, we need to overhaul it. It needs to, we got to get, we got to go back to the basics, and we got to get back to bare bones. And it's like, but what is bare bones? I mean, I'm willing to just strip it down to its skeletal level. Communities of people just kind of figuring their shit out as they need it. People collaborating when necessary. Well, governments are inevitable anyway. Okay, then a corrupt government is inevitable anyway. Because what you're saying is that that the inclination of human nature is to gravitate towards corruption. So even in an anarchist society, if we had our anarchist society, we would ultimately gravitate towards having a state. It's possible. It's possible, right? I mean, I'm not going to rule it out, but it's possible. So then if that's the case, then if we have a minimal government, then human inclination is to gravitate towards tyranny. And the reason why is what? Then it comes back to the point that I was originally making, which is that the security blanket. We always sold these things. People are constantly being sold and peddled these things that in these policies based on safety. So basically, politics is a predatory behavior that hones in on people's insecurities. That's exactly what it is. So basically what you're saying is you're just an insecure piece of shit who can't stand on his own 2 feet, which is why you need your little blankie and your nightlight, and you check underneath your bed every night before you go to sleep to make sure a jihadist isn't there, or a homosexual, whichever, right? I mean, this is, so the argument is mainly fear-based. The whole argument for the state is fear-based. I don't care if you're a minarchist. I don't care if you're a full-blown freaking, Democrat or Republican. It doesn't matter. It's all fear-based. No, everybody talks a good talk about liberty. But in order to truly be free, you first have to be able to face down your fears. You can't live in constant fear. Living in constant fear makes you a slave and a prisoner of your own mind. And what's worse is that now that you're the prisoner of your own mind, you're recruiting. Join me in my fucking cell. Why? There are a few. I get into it with feminists all the time because apparently they need feminism so that they can be reckless assholes and not have to suffer a goddamn consequence in their lifetime. Okay? Anytime a woman has to suffer a consequence, apparently that's sexist. So apparently the laws of cause and effect are essentially sexist in nature. The feminist laws, right? But here, I have said this time and again, and I'm hoping maybe just one of these drones picks it up. In the entire universe, okay, the entire universe, what we really know is like within our own galaxy. So we're good on that. Like we're trying to explore the galaxies right now. We're trying to figure out what their shit's about. I can tell you now, this galaxy, this little spot here that we're in, is one of the most hostile places. By all counts, there should be no life. Holy shit. Okay, look, I'm not a science person. I've said this before, and I will continue to stand by that statement. I'm not a science person. But it only takes like a 30-minute session of watching what happens. Just happens. Never mind why it happens, the fact that it does happen in space. It is absolutely destructive and antithetical to conditions that should be conducive to serving life, okay? Life shouldn't exist. The fact that we found a rock, we didn't even find a goddamn rock. The rock just exists, and this tiny little rock allows people to be on it. It permits it. It permits it in the most hostile way, but nonetheless, it permits it. We're allowed to be here. Truly, truly. Nature has allowed us a small amount of scientific latitude to exist, okay? By all counts, space don't want us here. So our existence is a protest to everything else that's happening in space. I just want to paint this picture for you. On this rock, okay, where life is permitted to exist, okay, it's still hostile. Down to its most basic natural form, everybody has a predator. Well, I mean, the scientific categorization of things is, who's the natural predator? Who's the natural predator? Okay, so then we finally get to the human being. Who's the human being's natural predator? The human being. We are our own natural predators. Okay? Now, accepting this as part of nature. Okay? Not saying that it's good. I'm not saying accept it as in that's cool. No. Accepting it as truthful, as a truthful statement. And tolerating the fact that when you go outside, your natural predator is another human being. Or other human beings, plural, right? I accept the fact that outside of my home is a whole world that is predatory, ranging from people who want to murder me, to people who want to steal from me, people who want to bully me and harm me, people who potentially want to rape me. I assume those people exist. This is a reality I accept about the world, okay? It's not about being cynical. It's simply accepting the fact that if it happens, if murder still happens, if theft still happens, if rape still happens, then obviously the odds are there. I don't know how slim or how big they are, but nonetheless, the odds exist that I could very well be the next person it happens to. Or at least there might be an attempt to do so, okay? I accept this. State be damned. No amount of state, no amount of feminism. Ironically, it's that same amount of faith that that's required to say I need statism because I need feminism because we feel like if we have these philosophies, if we have these movements to have a government or to have feminism or whatever it is, that we should be indemnified from those predators and from those consequences, that it shouldn't apply to us anymore. But that's not the way of the world. That's not the natural order of things. The natural order of things is no matter how much state you have, you still have predators. Creating a new predator that's supposed to keep the other predators in line, creating a bigger predator to get rid of the smaller predators, it boggles the mind that that's our solution. As thinking, reasoning, rationalizing human beings, that this is ultimate. This was our brainchild. This was the brain trust came up with that. Well, there's a bunch of predators out there who want to do bad things to people. Yes. How should we solve that? How should we address that as a society? Well, we should probably create the ultimate predator. We'll call it the state. And we'll channel all of these little predators through the system and bully them through. We won't actually do anything to address the predatory issue and what causes and creates these predators. We sure as hell don't give a shit what happened to the victim or what they need to make them whole again. We're just going to tick them off and say, that's not your job. You can't extort. Only we can extort. You can't murder. Only we can murder. You can't blow shit up. Only we can blow shit up. And if we monopolize crime and force and make it criminal for anyone else to try and do what we do, we'll look heroic for cleaning up the streets. That was our plan. That's the state. That's the argument. We need a bully to get rid of little bullies. How has humanity survived itself for so long with government smaller than what we have now and no governments at all? How have we survived? We've survived the 10,000-year existence of smallpox, and we can't manage to just get by without fucking each other over or dealing with shit when it comes up, when somebody does screw you over, that we can't just deal with it. We need a whole system that tells us how, because we've forsaken all of our critical thinking skills. I'm not seeing it. And I feel like it's just this idea that people cling to, that the statism thing, I mean, and like I said earlier, you can literally replace I need feminism because blah, 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 to I need statism because blah, blah, blah. I need statism, hashtag, because I can't sort my own shit. I need a system that tells me how to sort my shit. I can't solve a problem. And I don't know anybody who can. So I'm fucking stuck until I have a system that tells me how. I don't know. I don't get it, and I honestly can't get on board with it until somebody gives me a more reasonable explanation other than be afraid you're unsafe. Well, that does it for me. We'll catch you next week. Thanks. Bye.